Hi everybody, I am Parna again with you all with a very interesting topics. So do you know about brain development of fetus? Now I am going to discuss about the brain development of fetus. Expectant mothers are always excited and curious to know about the growth of their little one inside their womb. Besides the physical growth, mental growth is imperative. A specific timeline of the brain development of the fetus is necessary for the mother to act accordingly to ensure the healthy growth of the fetus. How our brain works and what makes it tick has always intrigued and mesmerized researchers. All progress and regression in our life can be easily attributed to the way our brain works. Things decides, reasons, concludes, etc. Life starts with the fertilization of the egg until the 8th week. It is called as an embryo. From the 8th week until the moment of birth, it is known as fetus. Brain development involves the formation of the brain, nervous system and spinal cord. It all begins at the embryonic stage itself. Did you know? Genes contributed to about 60% of brain development environment in uterus, to about 30% and maternal nutrition to about 10%. Although genus provides the basic blueprint for fetal brain development, its sound development depends upon certain external factors such as nutrition and well-being of mother, avoidance of exposure to toxins, etc. Brain development timeline. Fetal brain development week 1 to 2 first trimester. The egg gets implanted into the uterine wall and conception is considered as 2 weeks old. Fetal brain development week 3. The egg is now a ball of cells called as the blastocyst. The egg has an unique DNA that carries the necessary informations. Of the two strains, one comes from the father and the other from the mother. There are two types of cells, the inner cells which will later form the embryo and the outer cell which will form the membrane. Fetal brain development week 4. The blastocyst can now be called an embryo as it has now reached the uterus and buried itself in the wall. The uterus wall has become thick enough to support the baby. The embryo will now receive all the nourishment from the mother. In this phase, the embryo further develops the three brain sections, forebrain, middle brain and hindbrain along with the optical stalk. Fetal brain development week 5. The first sign of the cerebral hemisphere is visible at this stage. As the brain continues to develop, other organs like the circulatory system begins to function with all four chambers of the heart present. We can see upper and lower limbs birds. The heart too start to beat with twice the rate of the mother. Fetal brain development week 6. This week sees the formation of the brain hemisphere and also some wave activity. The neural tube that connects the brain and spinal cord also closes in this duration. The formation of the pituitary, thymus and parathyroid begins too. Fetal brain development week 7. By this week, the brain is growing at a rapid rate. The eyelids and ears have started to form and also the genital area. Fetal brain development week 8. In this week, the head is quite large as compared to the rest of the body. The development of the hindbrain responsible for regulating heartbeat, breathing and also concerned muscles movement also begins now. Fetal brain development week 9. The nervous system by now is quite developed from proper functioning. The genital region for both the sexes look alike. Fetal brain development week 10. The genital begins to develop at this stage, determining the sex of the fetus. Brain development is also very rapid as the brain is forming 250,000 neurons per minute. The eyelids and ears are developed and the embryo is now a fetus. Fetal brain development week 11 to 14 second trimester. The spinal cord is clearly defined and the spinal nerves start to stretch out from the spinal cord. This week sees the completions of the first trimester. The sex the baby can be determined in this period. The heart, liver, spleen and many other organs are already functioning. By this stage, the baby is taking plenty of nourishment through the placenta. The fetus also begins its practice of breathing, inhaling and exhaling. The eyelids will close and not open until the 28th week. Fetal brain development week 15. The baby torso is now growing rapidly and it is completely covered with lanugo, fine hair that protects the skin. The sense of hearing also sharpens at this stage. The pituitary gland is well developed. Fetal brain development week 16. The baby makes its presence known by pulling the tugging on the umbilical cord. The cerebrum is in a further stage of development. Fetal brain development week 17. At this stage, the uterus begins to expand to give more room to the baby. As the bones are growing and becoming hard, it needs protection. The spinal cord is protected by a barrier made of a substance called myelin. Next, fetal brain development week 18. The baby develops sensitivity to light and at the same time the brain is growing rapidly. The operculum starts developing at this stage. Fetal brain development week 19. The brain becomes capable of forming millions of motor neurons, enabling the baby to develop and make muscles movement voluntarily. The forebrain further developed into left and right cerebral hemispheres of the brain. The nerve cells required for the processing of all the senses are also developing rapidly. This is the stage where baby can hear you. Fetal brain development week 20. Nerve cells at this stage make complex connection and sensory perception with the brain and the entire body. This development carries on until the age of 5 or 6. Fetal brain development week 21. Rapid growth and development of the fetus slow down in this week. The organ, especially the heart, is getting stronger and fat is getting accumulated in the baby's muscles. Fetal brain development week 22. As the brain is understanding complex sensory perception, the fetus becomes capable of distinguishing between different sounds. Fetal brain development week 23. All the nerve cells that so far had formed and developed independently begin to join to form a complete nervous system. This is the age where the fetus can respond to aversive stimuli. Fetal brain development week 24. At this stage, the brain starts to regulate all body functioning and activates the auditory and visual system, which heightens the baby's overall sense. Fetal brain development week 25. The spinal cord begins to harden and straightening out. Nervous system is more developed and capable of controlling voluntary breathing. The optic nerve is highly heightened in perceiving light from any direction. This stage marks the development of the lateral sulcus. Fetal brain development week 26. So far the brain was smooth and its form, but at this stage its tissue begins to develop creased wave-like formation. The brain waves also get stronger at this stage, enhancing auditory and visual sensors. Fetal brain development week 27. As the brain is actively processing many senses, it is quite possible that your unborn will begin to dream. Brain tissues are also developing fast. Fetal brain development week 28 to 40, third trimester. The brain completely monitors the breathing and regulates the body temperature. This being the beginning of the third trimester, the brain continues to grow and increasing rapidly in size, all the while establishing connection between the nerve cells. The brain along with the lung is the last organ to develop and the process is completed close to the end of the third trimester. A newborn brain is only after 1/4 the size of an adult's. Brain development issues. The environmental, physical and emotional being of the mother all have a profound effect